For this upside down drawing, I'm going to be showing you the image that's in the lesson plan for the 7 to 9-year-olds. Even though the images for the 10 and 11-year-olds is different, the concept is exactly the same. The image for the 10 and 11-year-olds is more complicated, so a bit more of a challenge. If you feel like your students need something simpler, just use whichever image in whichever lesson plan you think is best for your students. When you do choose an image, you want to print out both sides of it, and you're simply going to cut off the extra strip and then tape the image together so that it lines up as best as you can. But the reason I did this is because I wanted the image to be easily seen, even by students who are a little bit further away. So I just doubled it in size to make it hopefully easier on everybody. You want to have your whole image set up before you start class in the morning so that you're not trying to do this when students are around. You want to have it all set up and all covered up before class starts. So you're going to have your image upside down like that, and you're going to be covering up in some way. There's a few options you can do. You can simply take construction paper that's nice and dark and tape it together, and then you could tape that over that to cover it. Another way is to use a file folder. So you can take one like this, cut off the top section so it's straight, and then put that over the top. One reason I don't like this one so much is that some of them can be a little bit transparent where you can see the lines through it. We want this to be totally impossible for the kids to see what's under there. So my favorite option, and I think the simplest, is to take a hanging file folder like that, undo it. We already see that the top is nice and straight, and it's really thick like that so the students can't see what's behind it. So I'll have this set up with tape, and I'm going to use painter's tape because I think that that's really easy to stick and unstick as you move your cover down. So I'll use some pieces like that, and that's how my board will be before the students ever come into the classroom. On the image that's behind here, there's dotted lines, and on the paper that each student will get, there is these dotted lines, and that corresponds exactly to what they're drawing. So it just gives us nice, easy sections to follow as we draw. Each student will have one of these dotted line papers, but you as a tutor do not need to have one unless you want to, because you're not going to be drawing it yourself. You're going to be talking through it and letting them study and draw on their own paper. We want to connect this with the oils vocabulary from week 1 because whenever we draw, we always use the oils. And the same with an upside down drawing. We go really slow, we study what we see, we try to be as accurate as possible, and we use the different types of lines like curved lines, straight lines, dots, all those things. It's the same idea, we're just doing it in a different way. So we want to do this by studying section by section. So to begin, I would take this down to the first dotted line, line it up, and now we have one area that we could just study this and draw it here in that top section. So you can help the students talk through what they see, especially for younger students, maybe 7, 8, 9. You can talk about as a class and say, what kind of line do we see here? It's curved and then it goes down to the bottom. How far over is it? Is it to the side? Oh, it's a little bit off to the center there. And then the students would go ahead and try and study and replicate that line on their paper. The more that we talk about things, the more that we can kind of listen and use that vocabulary. But the more we talk, the more we have to really look at what we're seeing in order to talk about it. So the more we study. So I'd ask the kids to describe this line here. And it kind of curves down, over, down, and up again. So I'm going to try and study that and then replicate that just like the kids would do on their paper. Now, of course, this is an exercise. We're not going to try and be absolutely perfect because that's impossible, but we simply want the kids to get used to studying an image and then recreating it on their paper. You can keep talking through it as a class and continuing to draw what they see. If you have older kids who want to go at their own pace and you feel like they can do that, then you can simply uncover a section, not talk it through as a class, but simply walk around and help students as they need it and let them do this just silently by themselves. So try and gauge your class, see what type of personalities you have and whether it's best to have a discussion or to have a silent time during art class this week. Once you have that done, then you're going to move down the cover to expose the next section. Each section should take 3 to 5 minutes. If they're taking more than 5 minutes, you just have to cut them off and move on to the next section in order to finish up in the half an hour. But hopefully you can hurry along the slower ones, and the ones who finish faster don't have to wait too long before we move down the cover. And now the next thing, we know that this section corresponds right here to the next dotted line. So I would either talk through what I see with the class and allow them to draw it, or allow them to draw on their own. If I was talking it through, I would say, what's the first thing that we could draw here? Probably to extend that line. Does it go straight? Nope, it curves in a little bit. Does it go all the way down? I would say it's about halfway in that section. So I'll try and study that, come down and recreate it there. This one curves up and out a little bit. And again, we're always talking and looking, and even if you want to go around and talk individually with students, we still want to ask them questions and help guide them through the thought process as we draw. So I'll just go through and look at what I see and draw it. You get the idea that you are looking at individual lines and how they connect with other things around them. This one kind of goes towards that, but it doesn't meet it. So I would kind of do that. There's different ways that we can start looking at how things correlate to one another in the picture. So that's just 2 sections. There's a total of 6 sections. So each time you get done with one, you simply move this down to the next one. And it's always fun to ask the kids, what do you think this picture's of? Because hopefully they won't recognize it right in the beginning. It should be just a series of lines, and they can guess a lot of things, and hopefully they don't know it's the Statue of Liberty quite yet. Go down to the next section, the students draw, and so on and so forth. And of course it gets a little more complicated the further we go down. So this might take 3 minutes to do, but this one takes maybe 5 minutes to do. And then eventually they finish the whole picture upside down, and then it's done. If you get done too early, you can have colored pencils available for them to fill it in, or some type of little information on the Statue of Liberty. But most likely, if they're going slow and trying to be accurate, it should take almost the full half hour.